Hey, music makers, before the show gets started today, I want to let you know about another awesome podcast called Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. Some of you might remember Tim from episode 1. He's a music therapist, author, TED Talk, award-winning speaker, and he has launched a podcast based on his 40 days of Facebook Live looping that he did of just going through and providing relaxing music in this time of stress. It's simple. It's him, his guitar effects pedal board, and just a chance to relax. And it's meant specifically for healthcare workers, but I think anybody can get some great relaxation out of this. So please head over. Link is in the show notes below. Check out Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. Subscribe, leave a rating and review, and send that Make More Music family love. Hey, welcome back to Make More Music, the podcast that connects people to music and one another. My name's Chris, and I'm a board-certified music therapist. If you're new here, I interview different music and music-related field professionals to really show the abundance of life and career paths and options, even in the middle of things like coronavirus, that people are doing and making a life and a career out of music. So today is an awesome one. I have none other than the Brian Wampler, President and CEO of Wampler Pedals, and a big day. If you're listening to just the audio version, this is on YouTube now. You can see my smiling face, my long beard, my coronavirus hair. You can see it all there. And from now on, we're going to be launching the whole YouTube channel this way. So go on, subscribe, hit the bell icon for updates and alerts of what we're up to. But you know, Brian and I get into all kinds of fun things, talk about picking safe, edible mushrooms in Indiana and how he's been social distancing long before it was cool, but also what it's like to run a niche music industry, to be a person that's manufacturing guitar pedals and really, you know, doing well in the market. And his response to how can I help others? How can I be the kind of person that is giving back and, you know, sharing business knowledge, mentoring young business owners, whether it's creatives in the pedal space or not. So this will be a great one, regardless of whether you're in the guitar effects world or if you just find this all super fascinating as a creative person. So without further ado, here is Brian Wampler of Wampler Pedals. Brian, I'm glad you're here. I've been a fanboy of your stuff for a while. I've been listening to the Chasing Tone podcast for a long time. And, but before we get into, you know, running a company, you know, all the educational content you put out, I saw you just put out a how to mod your DS1 book this week. Before we get into all that, let's start with some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Sure.
All right. So first, I want you to open up Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, whatever you use. What is the last track you played?
You're not going to like this answer. It would be a podcast. I listen to way more podcasts than I do music, honestly.
Yeah.
Generally,
What
if
have you?
I'm listening to music, just because of the type of work I'm doing, it's probably going to be something not very guitar related. Because it's literally, it's almost impossible for me to do anything productive and to listen to like Van Halen or something like that.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I end up like wanting to play guitar. I just get completely off track. So I'm like listening to jazz or even like lo-fi. I like lo-fi, kind of trancey beat stuff. Even
It's
though
easy to zone out and work to that stuff.
it's just
Yeah.
a working thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, but if I'm like, I'm outside having a beer or something, then usually with me, I'm a big classic rock fan. When I say classic rock, everything from Van Halen to like early 2000s stuff. So, um, except for, I'm trying to think of some bands I really don't like. I really like everything. I mean, I loved Pantera stuff, and I've also loved Bryan Adams in the '80s. So basically anything that's really guitar driven, it feels like a really good guitar riff. I'm really into that sort of thing.
That's your hangout stuff. So you've
That
got your
is, yeah.
hangout music, your
Yep.
working music, and then your podcast. Well, I'm a nerd too. So what podcasts were you listening to?
I listen to a bunch of them. Fizzle is I'm a big fan of Fizzle.
I don't
It's
know
like
that one.
it's kind of an internet marketing for small businesses sort of
Okay.
podcast. And yeah, one of the guys on there plays guitar, and I've talked to him every now and then. So, anyways, that's how I found them. And it's just they seem like good people, really. So I work at home. A lot of people don't know this. I actually work at home alone. Even though there's a lot of people that work for me, and, myself, I work from my house, kind of in well, it's in a barn, but it's basically a studio inside of a barn. So I don't really have a chance to talk to that many people, unless it's like a phone call or something.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's just kind of comforting in a weird way to just hear a conversation going on.
Yeah, yeah. Just like background chatter. Oh, the
It
my
re
friends in the office. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I listen to that. There's another podcast called the Survival Podcast, which is,
Hmm.
I mean, it sounds like a prepper thing, but it's all over the place. So from things like gardening to business stuff to I mean, just everything you think of. Preparedness in like
Self-sustaining. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Homestead. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
More so than like how to build a bunker in your background, or in your backyard. So, I mean, I listen to that stuff. What's another favorite podcast of mine? Joe Rogan, of course. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah. Between other than that, I really don't have a whole lot of extra time. So it's usually one of those three that I'll put on.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll listen to my own podcast just to see make well, I want to make sure that what
Quality
I'm doing with
control. Yeah,
compression.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not like listening to it. I'm listening to see like, well, can you hear the gate in the background? Is it too strong? That sort of thing.
Hmm.
'Cause you just never, I mean, it's different whenever as it's different when you're editing versus whenever you upload the MP3 and now it propagates over different places. And um, so, anyways, yeah, that's about it, really.
There you go. Well,
It
that's good.
usually,
That's good.
yeah, usually it's just something in the background that I can get, I can work to.
And then, so I feel like I might know this one, but maybe you'll surprise me. If you were an instrument, what would you be? You can
Hmm.
be as philosophical as you want to take it or as plain as you want to take
Golly, I don't know. I've never thought about that. Uh, Probably a cymbal because I can be loud and annoying sometimes.
it. Fair enough.
I've never thought about that.
I've
I
been
would like
getting
to be
some
a
wild
52
answers.
Telecaster if I could be. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part of that question. It's what would you be? It's like
Yeah,
not what I want to be. Yeah, yeah,
right. I would
yeah.
probably be a cymbal or some sort of loud snare, probably.
Good. I like it. Um, kind of in the midst of all this craziness, you were social distancing before it was cool, it sounds like at work. But
I was. I definitely
what
was.
is something that's been inspiring you recently?
Um, so let's if we can kinda hone in on that. You mean something that's been inspiring me, like, musically, or something that's been inspiring me in a specific way, or just in general?
I'll let you take it wherever you want
Okay.
to take it.
Um, I find what's happening I find, in a weird way, watching the economy be shut down manually, and then that's we've never done that before, and
Mhm.
we've never tried to restart it. So in a way, it fascinates me just to watch and like gather data. So what happens whenever you do this to an economy? I think that's fascinating to me, but it's also terrifying to me. If it didn't affect me, it would be fascinating on every level, but it affects me greatly. So therefore, it's more terrifying.
Also terrifying. Yes.
Yeah.
It is
um,
really interesting. The fishbowl or the 50 years from now view is going to be very interesting of
yeah.
all the decisions that are being made. And I don't know. It's wild.
It is, yeah. It'd be, I like the depression. It'd be how a lot of kids these days look at the depression or you learn about the depression in school. It's hard
Mhm.
to really understand what happened, and I think this is one of those events. I don't know if it's gonna be a depression necessarily, but it's definitely gonna be one of those events that are in the history books for sure. But, I guess really to answer your question, what inspires me and I guess what I've tried to do is rather than sit at home and play Xbox all day long and moan about it, I've tried to do something that's been productive, you know? So, I mean, we've kept on working on projects that we're designing. We've kept on doing that. As you talked about earlier, I also have been releasing some ebooks and later on some physical books about guitar pedals. So working on the inner circuits of them, how they work, in in a very in everyday language, I guess you could say. So not from a a
Hyper
scientific point of
technical.
view.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm not a big fan of looking of teaching uh, engineers how to be better audio engineers, for example.
Mm.
But I think it's very helpful to guitar players to at least teach them about some of the circuitry stuff, so they're not believing that there's magic capacitors, so because there's a lot of bull that really goes in with
Yeah.
audio electronics in general. So, so I've done that. I'm also creating kind of a sort of a course on helping people that have a creative business get that started. So, 'cause I just have, like, notes, all kinds of notes that I've taken over the years. So I'm really compiling all that and kind of building a course around that. Um, yeah, so there's not been one day that I've sat and thought, "I'm bored."
Yeah, the
Well,
time has really filled up. Yeah.
but
Between
yeah,
that and
I find it
the
I love
mushroom
it.
hunting with the kids,
And
huh?
and
Yeah.
yes, yeah, we have been mushroom hunting and found some mushrooms in the woods and ate those. The
Some
morels
safe,
and
regular,
right,
edible. Yeah, yeah.
right. Not the ones that make you hallucinate or anything like that, not
Yeah.
those kind.
That's different than the Van Halen ones. Yeah.
That's different than the Van Halen ones, yes, yes.
That's good. What is a pro tip or a hack? This again can be something related to the business, to music, but it also, like, Blake literally told me how he keeps his to go food warm in the car. So, what is a pro tip or a hack that you feel like you practice that you think everybody should know about?
Well, to be honest with you, something that I've been recently doing, and I don't know why I didn't do this before, this is more of a productivity hack, but when I edit a video, when I get done, I'll open up a browser and open up like a Google document, and I'll play the video and I'll have it text, what is it? Speech to text on the Google document, and therefore it kind of translates everything as I go. I do have to do a bit of editing, but it's pretty good. It's pretty effective.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
saw that. I saw that as well because I'm thinking about starting to put the podcast episodes up on YouTube, and I saw that that's an easy way to get like a show note feed
Yeah, absolutely.
transcription. Yeah,
Yep.
that's good. People are giving very good regular ones. Like, a lot of people just keep talking about using your calendar, better using your email, and it's like it doesn't sound sexy, but that is the stuff that really matters. So,
Practicality never is sexy.
no, unfortunately, but it works.
Yep.
To kind of shift totally out of the pro tip land, what is your go-to junk food?
Mm. I am addicted to I like organic peanut butter. I don't like the Jiffy. But just peanuts and no extra added sugar and Hershey's chocolate. I'm
Mm,
completely addicted to that. A big pile of peanut butter and a chocolate bar and just using that as my spoon.
just a couple hours later, you got about 3 empty jars. Yeah. 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 I know how that goes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I really shouldn't be eating that all the time, but that's been my go-to during the quarantine.
Man, that's good. That's good. Lastly, what is a person, a project, or another organization that you feel like deserves a shout out for anything that they're doing?
Hmm. Mhm. There's a bunch of different things. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is in times like this where a lot of manufacturers are shut down, like I said, you still have people like John Cusack, David Young from WGS Speakers. Both of those guys have 3D printers and they're
Mm,
making parts for face masks for
wow.
doctors. Um, I don't know if they're charging. If they are, I'm sure it's very minimal. But I mean, like just the whole idea of them stopping what they're doing and focusing on something else for someone else. I love that. In fact, my wife, she has a separate business where she makes like superhero capes on Etsy. She started making face masks and donating them to hospitals, another group of people. And so, I mean, that's what she's been focusing on. So I think that I think it says a lot about a person and their personality whenever you watch what they're doing versus what they're saying. So,
Mm,
and this is one of those situations where you may not see people doing a lot of good things like that because some people just simply don't go on Facebook and post about it.
mm.
But to me, like, that is inspiring, just seeing what's going on behind the scenes, seeing people help in ways like that.
There's a lot of people doing a lot of cool creative solutions. Are there anybody in your area? I've noticed, for example, in Louisville, we've had several like grants pop up for people making art. And I know you're kind of out in Martinsville, but is there anything in your like local community that's been going on that's been cool?
Well, people at the local Walmart have decided that
I was waiting for it.
the quarantine doesn't exist, and it's been business as usual.
That's essential, Brian. That is essential. I'm
It
dying.
literally, it's the only thing to do in town, so it's never been more packed. There's never been more people at our local Walmart, and
That's
I
very
can't
not safe.
I'm just like, "This is not the way this is supposed to work, everyone."
Oh man. Yikes. Well, well, to go back, let's go all the way back to the beginning then. So you grew up around that area, right?
I did, yeah, mhm.
So take me back to young Brian. What are some of your first musical memories?
Oh gosh, my grandparents on my mom's side, they played guitar, um, and sang. So since I was little, I remember them doing that, and so I remember as a little kid going to my grandmother's house and she'd have a guitar there and I'd pick it up and just mess around on it. And she showed me like a few bar chords or something like that, I think. Um, and my brother was a drummer. He had a band and I'm thinking I was probably about 7 or so when I started playing. And it was really due to the fact that my brother his band would come over to the house and the guitar player that played with him, I he had a flying V and I thought it was cool
Mm,
looking.
it is cool. It is cool. It's still cool.
Yeah, they played a lot of Van Halen and Night Ranger and everything that one would play in the early '80s, and, yeah, that's kinda where I started from, and then over the years, as a teenager, I still played guitar, but I also was a skateboarder, and, I raced BMX for a while, um, and that's really it. Other than that, yeah, when I got into high school, I was in bands, and we would all try to play Paul Gilbert's type Racer X stuff and fail miserably.
Sweet. Sweet.
Um, so
I
that's
love how hard he's been hitting the scene again recently
yeah,
too.
and he's
It's
such a
been
good guy
very
too.
cool.
And
Yeah.
he's such a nice guy. And it's always wonderful whenever like your guitar heroes from years ago even just turn out to be completely selfless and just down to earth good people.
It's a lot more common, I feel like, nowadays than that like rock persona of the 60s and 70s and
Yeah.
kind of things like that. So,
It's much more accepted too. I mean, if you think about it, in the '80s, if you found out that, Slash was not an alcoholic, he probably wouldn't have been as cool back then, you know?
yeah, which is terribly unfortunate. It's like ruining lives and
Yeah,
stuff,
it is. It
but
is,
for some reason it's not hardcore, you
it
know?
was just a different time. People looked at their heroes different.
Golly. I know I met Neil Young. We were outside of the bus and we saw him at the Ryman and we got to shake his hand and everything. And after that, I was just like, I get it. I get it that you're like in your 60s now and you've done this for a very long time. But it's like, I'll sign two things, like shake your hand and it's like, oh, okay. I just spent a lot of money and I've literally obsessed with your music since I was like 12 years old. But cool, you know. But I get it
That
too. It's
that does
annoying.
happen. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
I think for some people who are famous, they have a they may have a hard time understanding that their business is really customer focused. And I mean,
Mm,
yeah, it's possible to continue on making great music and not being customer focused, but I think that I mean, you may be infamous for a while or famous for your music that you had, but probably no one's gonna buy your new stuff. No one wants
mm,
to hear it. They wanna hear the stuff you played 40 years ago. And you
yeah.
don't wa and you don't wanna sing it because 'cause you've been singing it for
Yeah.
40 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it.
Thousands
It's
and
just
thousands and thousands of times, but still.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but still, that's your business, you know? You go if you're going to be a musician, you better get and you wanna be a popular musician, you better be okay with traveling, and you better be okay with playing the same 10 songs every night for years, because that's what you
Yeah.
have to look forward to if you're if you do get that 1 in a million shot and are famous.
Unless you're like true Norwegian black metal and they break the
True.
rules and they
True.
can,
Very true.
they're
Yep.
allowed to hate everyone. And yeah, but that's cool, man. So, one of my favorite things to ask when people bring up being in bands, you've got to tell me some of your favorite band names that you had. The the dorky ones, the cool ones. What are your band's names that you remember?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember. I think in high school, one of them was called Talisman. I don't know
Solid,
why.
solid. That sounds like
Um,
a Iron Maiden ish kind of name.
yeah, what was the other one? The other one was I wanted to say Newfound Glory, but nope, that wasn't it.
Nope, they were famous.
But it was something like that. It had to be a
Yeah.
ripoff of it. I honestly don't even remember. Isn't that terrible? I don't recall.
I just know we spent significantly more time thinking of names and drawing logos than we did like finding a drummer.
Well, coming up with the logo was important because it was gonna be on everybody's folder, you know?
Exactly. The Trapper Keepers. And
That's
yeah.
right.
That's
Had to look
good.
cool on the Trapper Keeper.
So as you're growing up and playing in bands, uh, I know you've kind of taken a winding path to where you got to opening the pedal company, but what did the decisions of, making music as an adult and diving into a professional life in music and things like that look like for you?
Well, I mean, in my younger 20s, I thought that I was going to be a professional musician in some way, shape, or form. I was honestly planning on moving to Nashville and trying to either write or get a gig playing with a band somewhere. I did end up driving back and forth between Indiana and Nashville quite a bit and playing on Broadway back then.
Sweet.
But
And you're quite a ways up Indiana, so
yeah,
that's quite a drive too.
that's a 5 hour
Yeah.
drive. It's a long drive for tip money.
Yeah.
But my thought was, and we did some showcases and stuff like that, and nothing really ever came from that except for everyone else that I was in the band with. They've all have since gone on to work with big name artists, so they're all playing with big name bands now, which is
Oh
kind
man.
of funny and ironic in a way because that's what I was shooting for. But but that path to that is really that's where I kind of stumbled into making guitar pedals, and I mean I stumbled on that just because I like to mess with things really. So I was just taking apart pedals that I had, and I wonder what happens when I put a wire here. What happens if I go to Radio Shack and get some resistors and put something else in there. So that's really where it started from is just messing around with stuff. And that seemed sort of creative to me, and that prompted me to actually kind of learn, well, what is actually going on in this circuit anyways? Because
Mm.
because keep in mind at the time when I was just doing it, didn't go to college for anything like this. I didn't go to college at all. But I was just I was just pulling parts out and putting new parts in just to experiment. So I really
In
had to kind
a
of backtrack and
pre-internet time too.
yeah. Well, it was this was about 2000 or so. So we
Okay.
had the internet, but it wasn't as it is now, you
There's
know.
not that much telling you
Yeah.
what to do
Yeah,
with all
yeah. I
those
mean,
things.
I mean, I did find some like DIY forum, DIY stomp boxes. And that's still a really good one to this day. But um that's kind of where I approached it from. I didn't have any intention on starting a business around that at all. It just as I was modifying pedals, it seemed like the people around me wanted to buy them off me.
You're like, okay,
So
cool.
so,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, "All right," and then I sold some on eBay, and then next thing you know, some people ask me, "Well, can you build me, an overdrive?" I'm like, "I don't know, maybe." So, um, the it it just really started one step at a time like that, and I honestly thought for a while my business was gonna be more tailored around the DIY side, more of what, like, Build Your Own Clone's doing
Hmm.
or some other companies like that that sell, like, parts kits, and, I don't know, around 2006 or 7 or somewhere in that area, I kinda had to make a choice, like, "All right, you gotta go with one direction. You can't have y one foot, in the DIY side and one foot in the let's build pedals and sell them to people side." Um, so I just picked, just literally just like, let's try pedals. Why not?"
Yeah. Was there any like influencing factors, thoughts or anything, or was it as easy as like, I'm gonna give it a shot?
Um, it really they were really kinda head to head as far as, like, me trying to figure out which one I wanted to do. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but this is at a time when there really wasn't that much money in boutique pedals,
Hmm.
and people still called them boutique pedals, and they don't even do that anymore because
Hmm.
it just wasn't a common thing. I mean, you had Z-Vex, he and Full Tone,
Yeah.
and, and a handful of other people that were making some stuff, but for the most part, I mean, the idea of J Jamie from Earthquaker or Josh from JHS or me getting as big as we've gotten, I don't really think that wasn't really what we were trying for. It
Yeah.
just I mean, it wasn't that it was unintentional because, I mean, we definitely were marketing, we definitely were planning and that sort of thing. But whenever we were, pulling apart fuzz faces to see what happens when you change the bias on them, I don't think we were trying to start a business at that time at all.
Yeah. It's just like you said, shifting from being creative in modifying something to being creative in building something to being creative in marketing. And I think that that is something across you, Earthquaker, JHS. You see it in your own personalities coming out in the way that you all market. But I think what's also cool is how much that you all educate. Um, so you've gotten really into over the years YouTubing all kinds of just different content for musicians and for guitarists, and you've had the podcast for forever. So what has been some of the highlights of working with different artists and creating all this content? What has that been for you as a creative person
Hmm.
like?
Um, I would actually separate working with artists and content completely. Working with artists is sometimes fun and sometimes frustrating. It's if you haven't worked with an artist before, then it's really exciting because here's your guitar hero next to you, and you're making them something, that they want, that you've been listening to their music for years, and you
Here's
kind of
my things. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you kind of romanticize it after you've been doing it like over and over and over and over and over, and you realize that these are just people. These are just people like
Yeah.
any other customer. Then you're like, yeah, I would be glad to do that, but it costs this much. Like it's a business transaction. Um, but I think the thing that is satisfying from that perspective is it's satisfying to hear something that you've done that's been on a record that affects people, a recording that affects people. That to me is really cool. Or if I see someone playing live, like on the Grammys or something, and I see one of my pedals, I'm like, that's cool. But um, the I think there's way more satisfaction in creating the content. Like, to me, one of the things that drives me the most is actually educating people and kind of passing on some of the knowledge that I've learned. I'm way more passionate about that than I am, uh, you know, trying to sell Ingve an overdrive pedal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Not
And
Ingve,
just to
not that
get
I won't.
another
Yeah, I mean,
notch on the
yeah.
artist's belt,
I
but
mean,
yeah, like
if Ingve's listening, I will sell you an overdrive pedal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I would rather educate people on what makes an overdrive pedal tick, or basically it's all about bringing value. So if people don't want to know what makes a Boss SD1 sound like it does, then I'll quit talking about it. I'm literally just looking at what people ask questions about, and if I have knowledge in that area, I make a video on it. That's really all I'm doing.
And that started, I know you have this like mystical how to modify your guitar effects pedals books that sometimes sells for
It's
inexorbitant amounts on the internet.
yeah.
But what year was that in relation to starting formally Wampler pedals?
The last release of that book officially, well, I think was 2007, I think was the last release. So it hasn't been touched. In fact, I took it off the market for a while until I noticed that people were selling used copies literally for like $2,000, $2,500.
The Klon book.
And
Yeah.
and it was ridiculous, and I talked on the podcast about this, like, I would never want someone to pay that much for that book. That's ridiculous. So I thought, this is stupid. I keep getting all these emails about people asking me, if they can get a copy of this. I'm just gonna put it on Amazon. I'm not gonna touch it. If you want it, here's the price. It's affordable, and have fun with it. So that's really what I did. So once I put that on Amazon, it dropped the price of that way down. Again, with the idea of providing value to some people. That the value is that now the people that really wanted it wouldn't have to spend 2,500 bucks. So, but along with that, I mean, I've been rewriting it for years, just in bits and pieces. If I'm sitting on a toilet or something, I'll do a chapter. Um, so I've
It's
been
like a little
working.
dissertation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not a very good mental image there. I understand, um, so I've been working on it for a long period of time, and I want it to, and there will be a final book that's available. But right now, right now, I've only got like a couple pedals done, and I'm several hundred pages into it. So it's literally gonna be like the Moby Dick of guitar pedal modifications.
Yeah. Spend the rest of your life modifying like four pedals.
Oh, so it's so detailed. I mean, like we just did the Kindle book for the Boss DS1. It was 78 pages long, I believe.
Hmm. I need to get my hands on that for
But
sure. That is one of my like things that has been, I don't know, dealing with those like, I don't know, am I going to mess it up? I remember when I was about 16, I was in a power metal band, so I got EMGs for my guitar and I put those in like backwards somehow and sound didn't come out and I kind of had to tail between my leg go to the store and get help. So I think I love that kind of content because it's putting it in the hands of people that like me. I am not an engineer at all. I'm a musician because I'm not an engineer. Um, and just having something that's accessible from the language of someone else that is not too dissimilar,
Mhm.
that it's in a way that I can digest it and not feel like an idiot when I'm trying to do something.
Right. Well, and I mean, there's some people that just simply aren't good at soldering or doing things with their hands in that way. And that's fine. I mean, but that also is, again, back to education. I I I want to make sure, if at all possible, that people who are buying guitar pedals or buying guitar gear don't hear a lot of BS that you hear in the industry and believe it, because I think that's, I mean, like, I saw a thread in the Wampler Tone group on Facebook, which is, our little Facebook group, and someone was asking about what type of capacitors are gonna sound better in overdrive. And I'm like, that's not how it works. That's literally not how it works at all. It doesn't matter if it's a tantalum and electrolytic or a film or a polyfilm or a metal film. Like that's, I mean, it does matter, but it's 0.01% compared to a lot of other things going on. So for some reason, like all that hoopla around it, all the misinformation just drives me absolutely crazy.
The mojo and yeah, the
There's like, I
smoke and
understand it.
mirrors. Yeah.
People love a good story, and they love to be sold even if they tell you they don't. And that's really all it is. They're buying into a story that's not true, and they're selling themselves on something that's simply not true. Like, the truth is, if you want a tube screamer, you can buy one that's $20, you can buy one that's $600. And if I have those 3 set aside and you can't see them, and I've measured all the components so I know that everything is exactly the same on all 3, and I turn one on and one off and one on and off and so on, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. I've done it. I know it. it's it,
Yeah.
so I mean, and not that people shouldn't be making tube screamer clones. I mean, I love tube screamer clones as well, but there's a lot of misinformation around, why a pedal would be $500, and really, it really comes down to marketing and supply and demand.
Mm.
And that, and like when I say marketing, I mean that could be customer service too. So, the pedal that's $20, for example, that you might find on Amazon, um, if you have a problem with that pedal, you're going to have a really hard time getting it fixed. You're going to have a really hard time getting a hold of anybody to get it fixed. And and there's a good chance that when it does arrive, it may not work for that long. Like there's
Yeah.
things like that. Maybe, whenever you plug your power supply into it, the wrong type of resistor was put in it by accident and it doesn't work properly, or it just burns that resistor out. Like all these are things that happen whenever you don't spend a lot of time and money to make sure you put out a quality product. So, like, all that's different from what type of circuit it is. That's all very much engineering and, um, some, I don't know, a little more nerdy aspects of it, I guess.
I would say that there's also kind of this mysticism and romanticism of just having a pedal company, having a gear business this day and age. So, what are some of the kind of fun side, and what's some of the dark side, and what is a regular day? I know you talk about it's like, hey guys, I'm in the barn by myself. So, what does it actually look like to be you on any given week?
It does change a bit. I mean, so I'm gonna say prior to the coronavirus stuff, because
Yeah,
here lately, it's been nothing like it normally is. Um, I mean, okay, so let me start with the good side, actually. The good side is really making something that people love. That's really it, like, making something and people contacting you to say, "Hey, this made me, this brought me a lot of joy in my life. This is something that when I get home from work, I look forward to using this product." So that's what I love the most about it, is just really just satisfying people. Um, the things I don't like about it really evolve around, I guess some of the ugly parts of the business. There's some
mm,
there's some businesses that will, like any other business, is just part of the business world. They'll try to sue you out of stuff. They'll take your designs and copyright them from underneath you, or there's some Chinese clones of our stuff that we can't get. We we can't do anything about it. Like it
because of
just
jurisdiction and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it's just copyright laws are different in every different part of the world, and especially if you're in China, they don't really care unless you're Apple. If
yeah.
you're some little bitty guitar pedal company from Indiana, they basically just tell you to go away. I mean, they don't tell you that, they just don't really do anything.
They just don't
Uh,
tell you anything at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's a big problem with companies, in China making pedals that are basically trademark infringed, right? They might look like ours, and all we can do is try to when they try to import them into America, we can stop them there. But if you're in some other country, I can't guarantee the product that you're getting is an actual Wampler without knowing, like you showing me pictures of it.
yeah,
Uh,
and the
you
like
know,
shipping confirmation, yeah, thing from
Yeah, I mean,
your
like, I can match up that stuff. Usually the circuit boards and parts and stuff look different. The switches aren't nearly as good. The jacks aren't nearly as good. There's things like that. We now have enclosures that have Wampler actually stamped into them or molded into them. So that's an easy way to tell now, is that all of our enclosures aren't just generic enclosures. They're actually made just for us.
and
So,
what is
and average day, I forgot to answer about
oh,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
average day really starts with coffee, as any day should start with coffee. So I usually
Or
wake up.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I'm not an early riser, so I wake up 8 or 9 o'clock or whenever I feel like getting up. Usually whenever I go to bed, I set my alarm for 7 hours later. That's when I get up.
That's a good
Um,
plan.
so I wake up and grab some coffee. and start checking email. And I usually have a book I'm reading of some sort, and I'll read a book if it's not nice out. If it is nice out, then I'll usually, just kind of walk outside and get some sunshine, some fresh air for a little while. And from there, if I'm working on some sort of product, I always have like a running to-do list, and like the day before, I'll kind of set out my plan. So, um, you know, there might be finish product A that we're working on, or continue developing the algorithm for some other product we're working on. A couple phone calls, answering email. Then there's also the social media stuff. So make sure that the marketing engine is running as it should be. Kind come up with plans for developing content, plans meaning like what ideas, how are we going to implement this, like very very much business strategy type stuff. Um, so that's the main part of what I do, is somewhere in that area. It's usually involving product creation, talking to customers, creating content in some sort of way, or some other marketing type strategy. I know people don't like to think of that as marketing, but it really is part of marketing. Um, Aside from that, there's my partner actually handles the manufacturing of everything. He handles the distribution of everything. Um, yeah, so I don't have to worry about that side of it at all. I used to, but
Mhm.
around 2016 or so, we became partners, and I basically was able to get out of my lap everything that was making my life miserable,
That's good.
and everything that they were really good at. And so it's been a great partnership. It's Boutique Amps. It's the same company. They make Friedman amps. They make Friedman guitars.
Sweet.
They used to make 65 amps. I don't think they do anymore. They make Sedano. They make Tone King. What else am I forgetting? They have a company called Synergy, which is like the amp modules. I know there's something I'm forgetting, but basically they make high-end gear for several different companies, and they just partner with them sort of in the same way. And, yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of phone meetings about different things going on, and so we're all on the same page. But other than that, I really try to stick to the creative and people focused side of the business.
Yeah, and I know you kind of threw out you said, I know people don't like to talk about the M word, the marketing.
Yeah.
What do you think is that stigma that you clearly have shed the cape, if you will? So why do you think there is that stigma of marketing from, a business?
Well, in the past, marketing was an ugly word. It was really closely related to selling. Ugh.
Hmm.
When you think of selling, you think of trying to buy a car and somebody in a really bad suit trying to sell you a car that you don't even need, and or take advantage of you. Like all these negative feelings just kind of feels like marketing and sales.
Hmm.
And and at one time, you know what, maybe it was, interrupting someone while they're watching a show so you could talk about your brand new soap was a thing. um Now it's not. Now is, if you're a soap company, it's how do I develop content that people actually want to watch? And maybe I can help them in some way. Maybe they don't know that much about soaps, and they have a rash, and I can explain you have a rash because this is the type of soap you're using that has this chemical in it, and some people are sensitive to this. I mean, I'm completely spitballing here, but that's really marketing nowadays, is creating something of value that people will
Hmm.
want to watch or listen to or read or just engage with. Even like Facebook groups, like I said, we had a Wampler group. It's while it is part of marketing, the whole idea is where if you have a question, you can get in there and ask me directly, you know? Or we can just, if I don't know it, let's just start a thread and get some other people's opinions in here, you know?
Just be a person,
Yeah.
connect with people. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just yeah, it's just really being a more authentic version of a company rather than um, you know, GE or IBM or some other faceless entity.
Yeah, for sure. Who are trying to do the same things. Even all these big companies are trying to do that and trying to connect. And uh, you can see it. My favorite is Taco Bell. I just love how funny Taco Bell is at like making fun of themselves and being a ridiculous
Yeah.
company. But
Yep.
We were talking about it for a minute before we started chatting, but you brought this up too with Blake on Chasing Tone of like, I don't know what this is going to do for, a saturated market of guitar pedals and gear. But considering maybe the stuff going on for coronavirus, but also just in general, what do you see as the reasons for people failing in these kind of gear pedal related endeavors?
Um, I think there's few reasons that I've noticed. One is there's a lot of companies now that make kits, which is fine. I think the kits are wonderful if you're wanting to make something for yourself or even just wanting to learn a little bit more about, you know, electronics or building a pedal or whatever. Um, I think there's a big problem with whenever someone just takes a kit and then tries to sell it on Reverb or eBay or something like that. There's not it's just another fuzz face. Like
Mm,
there's no good story there.
yeah.
Um, so I think that is a problem for failure when it's just not interesting. On the flip side, there's also products I've seen people release that are incredibly interesting to them, but maybe the market's not interesting or not interested rather. Um, I don't want to name names, but I mean, a pedal that makes burp sounds, for example, might be completely new technology we're using, but nobody wants to hear a pedal that sounds like burps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just because you can. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, other than that, I mean, it's so so consumer focused, so customer focused. And there are a lot of people who may have a company, whether it's a pedal company or guitar or amp or whatever, and may be really, really good at actually doing the technician part, actually building the product. But when it comes to helping the customer decide if they even need your product, they may hate that part. They may hate the part where they have to put the soldering iron down and help a customer troubleshoot why his guitar isn't working, even though they don't sell guitars. They can't they're like, "I don't know. Go talk to somebody else," but not understanding, well, see, this is part of having a customer. Even though it's not your issue, you still like, you owe it to them to help them through this. They're looking at you as an influencer of sorts. So
Yeah.
do your part and help them. And I think not understanding that connection with the customer might hurt a lot of companies as well.
So that kind of leads in pretty well to usually how I like to wrap things up, and that is the how and the why you, as Wampler Pedals, and you, as Brian, inspire other people to make more music.
Hmm. I don't know how. I guess I've said before, we make toys. We make toys for guitar players, and
Mm,
sometimes that toy, you plug into that delay, and this happens to me as well. Yeah, with my stuff, with other company stuff, I'll plug into it and I'll write something,
mm,
even if it's just a riff. It's happened to 100 times where
yeah.
I'll plug into a pedal and I'll just write this riff. I'm like, oh wow, that's cool, and I immediately stop whatever I'm doing and I'll go record that in Logic Pro, my DAW,
Hmm.
and I'll just as a snippet of I was playing this, here's the idea I've got. I'll develop it out later, but I want to make sure I don't forget.
Yeah. Catch it. Catch that sweet little inspiration. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think maybe that's the how. Um, I forget your other question. No, I'm sorry.
And why?
Why? It all goes back to just helping people. It's one of the biggest things that drives me is educating people and helping people. That's just my personality. Um, I really wish I had a better way of explaining it, but that's that gives me the most satisfaction is seeing someone else happy. And believe it or not, that actually has bit me in the butt quite a bit in different areas, not only business, but when you're
Yeah.
that way with business, you're that way with everything.
Mm,
And that's
a
not
little bit of
always
a
a good
giver.
trait.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you're negotiating for to buy a car, it's really easy to get taken advantage of whenever you're trying to satisfy that car salesman. So, and I hate
Some
to keep
people will
using it.
keep taking. Yeah.
They will keep taking advantage of you. So that's over time you learn how to how to turn it on and off, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, when
But
you are dealing with maybe a poor, helpless customer, like you're saying, or maybe even, this person is not a customer, they're just emailing you because they can't get their guitar on.
right.
And you have this infuriating exchange where you're banging your head on the wall because it goes in circles. What do you do in those situations?
Um,
Or you've spent way too
I've
much time, if you will, or, whatever it is.
yeah, I've literally spent, uh, hours on one email, and because it went back 40 times, you know?
Hmm.
Um, I generally go down with the ship, usually. I mean, there are times where I'm like, "I have no idea, but, here's a great forum. Go there and post your question. I guarantee somebody will help you." Because
Mm.
there are some things like that that I just simply don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't
Yeah.
know, but, my knowledge is actually fairly limited in guitar electronics.
Yeah.
So, if someone asks me, a common question people ask me is, "What type of pickup should I get for, ABC type of sound?" And I don't have a whole lot of knowledge in that area. I'm like, "You know what? I really don't know. I have no clue." But post in the Wampler group, and I know there's a bunch of people in there that have been through all kinds of pickups, and I'm sure someone will have
Yeah.
some good ideas. So there are situations like that, but usually I have a younger guy that's, he's been emailing me for a week now. He's probably 15 or 16 and just trying to learn electronics. That's all he's trying to do. He doesn't wanna buy my stuff.
No.
He just watches my videos, and he's got question after question after question after question after question, and I'm cool with it. Yes, it kills my time, absolutely, but in 20 years, he's gonna look back, and he's gonna remember me. And that's it's I guess it's the whole who's coming to my funeral when I die?
Yeah.
That's
True.
that's kinda what I'm working on. I want a big party at my funeral.
Yeah. Between that and the fact that, if people keep talking about these statements like, guitar is dying or whatever apocalyptic thing about guitar based music. Well, when you don't respond to the 15-year-old or encourage the kid that is playing Stairway to Heaven at the guitar store,
Right.
what do you expect? Like, so I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that it's the diligence.
yeah, I mean, you can hit it right on the head. I mean, I would say fortunately for what I mean, that's a terrible way to put what I'm about to say, but due to this coronavirus, I think interest in actually playing the guitar has increased dramatically. I've noticed
Mm,
people buying, courses about playing guitar or even just, listening to songs and trying to play them way more than they did 6 months ago. I mean, 6
mm,
months ago, it seemed everyone was just looking for a sound. They just wanted to plug into the guitar. Not everyone, but a lot of people were just plugging their guitar into a pedal, getting some sounds and like, "Oh, it's cool. I can just play a few notes and it does some spacey stuff. Awesome." And now I'm seeing a lot more people who are like, "All right, so I'm trying to learn this song because I have nothing else going on. I can't
mm,
work. I'm stuck at home. I might as well learn this song."
yeah.
So I mean, if nothing else, that has been a good thing to come about from the coronavirus situation.
The artwork, the weird things that are going to come out of this is going to be way crazier than any Hunger Games,
Yes.
we can think of. It's going to be some wild stuff that'll come out of this time for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But so you talked about the book. I think that's my dog doing like a backflip about 10 feet above me. So if you can hear that.
I can't hear
Uh
it, but I can understand though.
yes. So we have a she's almost 6 month lab puppy, and then we have a basset hound who rules the house.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think I hear the lab. But um you know, with all your educational material, with your DS1 book that just came out, what other things do you have coming up in the future that you can talk about that you
Sure.
want people to know about?
Well, I mean, of course, we have a lot of different pedal releases, coming out. In fact, we were just on a phone call yesterday. We have things scheduled out through 2023, I think, right now.
Wow, that's
So,
awesome.
so yeah, so we got 3 years of product releases that are almost done. Um, so we have that, but I guess Really, the biggest thing that I've been trying to work on is I was talking earlier about this course helping other creative people kind of like me and developing a business, whether you're making wreaths and you're trying to sell them on Etsy, or you're like my wife who is making superhero capes,
Mm,
and you understand the technician part of it, but what you don't quite get is what in the world, like how am I supposed to find customers? Or how am I
mm,
supposed to find people to actually buy my product? How does that there's a lot of people that just don't understand how that works. So, and I know I'm definitely not the one that's invented this, but I think I'm one of the few that has done it. And rather than making a big, $5,000 course that,
mm.
that is on sale for 4,000, but only
That
for
the
the next
people,
hour. Yeah.
not the people making wreaths, are not the people that can afford that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's been one of the things that I've done in the past for a long time, generally for free. I have a lot of people that call me and ask me questions about that because they know somebody that's a friend of somebody else's that knows that I did it. So I'm like, you know what? I need to put this all in some place where somebody can spend a couple bucks and they'll have access to whatever they need to know without a bunch of the bull crap that goes on in that industry. Because to be
Mm,
honest with you, that industry is full of people that take money out of the bank, go rent a Lamborghini for a day, sit on the Lamborghini showing their money
mm.
and talk about how much money they've made. It's all lies. It's so based on lies because the real truth isn't nearly as sexy as that.
No, no, no way, for sure.
So again, it's just I'm seeing a need in more and more of my customer base asking me questions based around that. So I'm just trying to provide that.
Great. Well, I will keep people in the loop when that stuff comes up. Where do you want people, if they, for whatever reason, haven't heard of Wampler Pedals and the different things you do? Where do you want people to find you?
The best place to go is wamplerpedals.com. That's our website. If you just type in Wampler Pedals, you'll see all of our socials. Like we're on Instagram, and Facebook, and YouTube, and not so much Snapchat anymore. That's kind of gone now.
Mm.
We do have a TikTok, but I don't really use it much yet. Just not very good at the dances. Been
I was
trying,
about to
but
say, no dance videos yet.
I'm not very good at the dances yet. So I need some more practice before I get my TikTok
You
game
need to
going
get a
strong.
good dad mowing the yard in your Monarchs. That's what you
Oh,
need. That would be a good TikTok. A
that
dad series on TikTok. I feel like that would do great.
or as I call it, just another day at the Wampler house.
Or my life. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
I think that's always my favorite part of chasing tone is I feel like I'm watching myself become this like stereotype of a dad. And it's like, oh wow, I think all the things they're saying are very funny. I think that means I'm a dad too.
Well, if you find yourself with your cup of coffee walking outside of your house trying to figure out something that you can fix that day, you
Yep.
might be turning into a dad. It's
Yep,
a
for sure.
stereotypical
Yeah,
dad.
that's good.
Uh,
All right, Brian. Well, thanks for the chat. I
yeah.
appreciate you.
Thanks for having
Uh,
me.
absolutely. For Brian and Chris, remember everybody, give more grace, share more love, and make more music. All right. I hope you enjoyed that chat with Brian and learning all about his company and what the genesis of that has been. If you did, all the links are in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, all the links are below. Give us a thumbs up, give us a rating and review on your podcast player. And you know how the drill. You can connect with us again on Instagram at make.more.music. You can send me an email at makemoremusicpodcast@gmail.com. Again, there's the Google Voice number if you would like to call in and leave a question or anything that way. But don't forget, Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. Out now. I want you to go and like, subscribe, give some Make More Music love. He was on our episode 1, and just show him, hey, we're here. I'm also helping out, giving some audio production. So if you think this sounds okay, then hopefully you'll like his podcast too. And it's a nice chance to chill out with some relaxing music and get out of the stress of now. So remember, everybody, give more grace, share more love, make more music.